we left with your proposal. I have some questions that I think we want to make sure that we're operating in a transparent method way. Our understanding was when we're talking about the sick bank proposal and making it voluntary, we had initially proposed to you all providing a level of maternity leave in exchange for the sick bank proposal. I had asked you guys 2 or 3 times last time we were here because I didn't see it on here. The issue of as part of your final proposal, the maternity language. We made the offer that the maternity language was contingent on getting a resolution on the sick bank. I want to acknowledge that that's what we're talking about, and that was what your understanding was as well, right? Okay. I just want to make sure because it wasn't provided to us, and I want to make sure that we're not dropping that off of the table, that was what we had offered to you.
If there are clarifications. That's one of the things you wanted to clarify, so that's what
Okay.
So
All right, so I just wanted to make sure with that. I don't know if there are other clarifications you wanted to do first, but I just wanted to make sure that we cleared the air on that one as well.
you can wait because that'll be part of that. We want to hear what your response was to ours first, and then we'll be happy to.
So in terms of, I'm going to start with the document that is the teacher proposal February 26th and go through some of this, and then I have a pretty long amount of information that I'm also going to provide to you that we also will be putting up on the website so people can see it as well if they have questions about it. But starting with the one that you have entitled Teacher Proposal February 26, 2024, we had asked the question in 10.1 about the necessity of an employee retains active employee status while utilizing any paid time off. That occurs now, so we had asked why, I believe, why you all had felt that that was required. To the extent we don't believe that that needs to be in there, but to the extent that we can understand why you think it does, we're prepared to agree to that. The remainder of the changes about in 10.1 of reaching the 180 days and the surplus being paid out, we're not agreeing to. The 10.6, when a teacher is subject to quarantine by order of the health department, there shall be no loss of salary nor shall lost time be deducted from the accumulated absence leave. We're also not agreeing to. On the sick bank 10.5, we agree about the voluntary. Obviously, that's what we were seeking. By default, the teachers are automatically enrolled in sick bank contributions. Wanted to get clarification, as I had brought up last time, to make sure that there's a period of time and that there's an understanding that we will be sending something out to the teachers and to, we'll be sending something out to the teachers regarding the fact that they can opt out of that. Also, that the who has contributed to the sick leave bank, that needs to be clarified for that year, right? Because if I did previous to this contract, that's irrelevant to the fact that once we sign this contract, I have to now, in order to go forward, access the sick bank. So there's no retroactivity. So all of you, if you wanted to access the sick bank, would voluntarily still permit where you would put a day in for your sick bank. Okay. So that's what we understand it to be. The sick leave bank committee down in terms of removing the joint committee, we agree that it could be a committee of association representatives who would be doing that. Obviously, the sick bank wouldn't have that joint committee, but when we get to the underline, the sick bank committee does not have the discretion to approve requests that do not meet the criteria outlined above. And it lists injury, illness, injury, or disability. We had also had provided language about the sick bank leave and the forms are subject to collective bargaining. And since we are in fact providing maternity and paternity leave as part of our proposal on this, there'd be no maternity or paternity leave under the sick bank. because employees are getting the 10 days that they would be getting. The course compensation, and I'm going to go in depth as to why we are not agreeing to your proposal for the course compensation. The same for the school year modifications. 29.24. At this point in time, the way that the contract is structured is that if somebody is asked to cover and agrees to cover, they do get paid to cover. The issue about, and a lot of your proposals have had the terminology about no retaliation and things of that nature. I want to be very clear with you. The fact that we are not agreeing to provisions that have that language does not mean then that the board believes that administrators have the right to retaliate, coerce, interfere, or violate anything which obviously has been covered under the collective bargaining statutes and get covered under other employment law concepts. Employers can't retaliate. Employers can't coerce. If it doesn't need to be within language within the contract for it to be something which is enforceable and which is something which can be complained about. I want to be very clear about that. So I don't want there to be a misunderstanding that when the board says that they're not agreeing to a provision that has in that, it's not because they're sitting here going, oh yes, we would like our administrators to retaliate against our staff. That's not what they're looking to do. So 29.24, we cannot agree to either. 29.21, we have had, I think, conversations, I think I've brought it up at this point at least twice about that school-directed committees, if people are directed to be on committees, there are times grants that cover how much people can get paid. If you supplant those funds and you pay, if it says $19 an hour and we say, oh, we have to pay you your regular per diem rate, and your per diem rate is $40 an hour, we then have supplanted the funds and then everything comes out of our local budget, and we cannot fiscally do that. So we cannot agree to 29.21 from you all. In terms of the working conditions, 8.14, the board still believes that the relevant state and federal laws, OSHA and OSHA, absolutely define within themselves what is covered for employee safety in terms of overall health, safety, and well-being. That covers things such as air quality, facilities cleanliness, those items. So the board is not willing at this time to agree to 8.14, the first paragraph. We did have a conversation last time about within the second paragraph about the committee meeting no later than October of each school year, and will present findings to the board no later than May of each school year, is that those meetings, and my understanding is you're still looking for a date, and I would highly encourage everybody involved to get the date settled in, but you all should be having, I believe we talked about in our estimation from the board's perspective, it's a monthly meeting that would be occurring between, I don't know who you send from your executive committee, but meeting with the superintendent, and I believe it's the director of HR, and it may also include Laura Boudreau, the assistant superintendent at times, I'm not sure. The student behavior, 8.14A, the board is not agreeing to. 8.14B, we would agree to. We would hope that that is happening. If it's not happening consistently, our understanding is that we may not actually be advised of that students. It may be a timing issue of us being advised, but 8.14B, we would agree to. 8.14C, to the extent that prior notice can be provided, again, that seems to us to be a very common sense provision, but we agree that that should be in there. I will say this so that there is an understanding, is that sometimes we don't know if students have behavioral issues, right? We don't know if they have behaviors. We have kids who come into pre-K sometimes who immediately have behaviors. We have kids who come into kindergarten who have behaviors. 8.14D, we are still in the process of having a conversation about if there's a way that we can agree to something on that. So that is right now a no with how the language is, but we are having a conversation about that. 8.14C, 1E is also a no. 8.14G, we agree to. 8.14H, as I said previously, you can't have reprisals, restraints, interference, coercion, or discrimination against an employee filing a report of an unsafe or unhealthy work condition, or for refusing to work in an unsafe environment or perform unsafe tasks. We can't do that. We don't believe that that needs to be within the contract. There are ways that that can be handled. In terms of some of the rationale of why we said some things here. In terms of the course compensation, the board did look at it quite extensively. And currently right now, the current professional learning for FY24 budget line is $300,000. There are 317 professional staff. If each one of them took their allotted courses per year, it would be almost $1.3 million. Something which right now it is not, as I said, completely funded. It's an obligation that's not completely funded. But the suggested list that you all provided is concerning to the board and based upon their interactions with administrators, because it actually suggests an exclusionary list. There are other institutes that your colleagues are going to. Some of them go to New York SUNY universities. Some are going to the Massachusetts College of Liberal Arts, Pittsburgh State, and also to Williams College down the road. Right now, there are 14 SVSU curriculum teams and district professional learning committees. And when there are requests for taking courses that are linked to the school's continuous improvement goals and reflect work on areas of current student data that need to be addressed, such as reading or math or behavioral issues, becoming a Wilson teacher, et cetera, those are prepaid right now. And of those 14 SVSU committees, there are about 140 of you who sit on those committees and provide input. Part of that input that you provide on that is also what the calendar will be about. In terms of the issue of of the fact of having course credit in order to do requirements of licensing, we would point out that the requirements of doing licensing and the responsibility for licensing does in fact rest with the individual professional. Professional development is provided at, there are things like Trauma 1, Trauma 2, the Collins writing, the science of reading practices, conceptual math, like All Learners Network, ongoing assessment projects, Boston, all these different things that are offered, which all also help towards your licensing. Currently now, the only specific licensing support provided by the SU or its members is that nurses annually receive CPR and first aid during their professional learning time. And that's from a policy, which is policy 5130. Your request regarding the school year is something that the board has talked about, that the board has, at this point, wants to have conversations, whether it's tonight or later, about potentials on a somewhat of a different proposal than what has been out there. But generally speaking, the school year proposal right now, which you all have provided, the board cannot agree to. Part of this is because of the issue of where some of your schools are at and what the impact of professional development is in those days where professional development, I believe today, was being done. And when I came into this building around noon, 1 o'clock, I think there were 35 teachers between two different groups. Some were learning about math, some were learning about literacy issues and how to address that. And that is, or both of those are areas of concern from your spring of 2023 NWEA map data, 49% of fifth grade students showed proficiency in foundational skills for ELA. For grades 3 through 9, 61.8% of students are not projected to meet proficiency. That's problematic. Professional development, and I will get to, is key to addressing that issue. For math, from your spring 23 map data, 26% of fifth grade students showed proficiency in conceptual math understanding. It's barely a quarter, a little bit more than a quarter of your students, that were tested. For grades 2 through 9, 79.7% of students are not projected to meet proficiency. Currently, out of the 317 teachers that are on staff for all of the SVSU schools, 12 are on emergency licenses, 42 are on provisional licenses. And professional development is incredibly important, not only to all of you, but definitely for the 54 teachers that have that. You have schools within, you have 4 schools within SVU, ESD, and MAU that have been identified as in need of comprehensive supports by the Agency of Education. The 3-year designation for Bennington Elementary, Molly Stark Elementary, Pownell Elementary, and for the middle school. You then have 3 schools identified in need of what they call equity supports. It's 1-year designation for the high school, for the middle school, and for Shaftesbury Elementary School. To improve student outcomes, the educational research is clear that there needs to be a focus on ongoing professional learning and coaching. Your professional development days, as they're outlined in the contract, provide that. If we could have more, we would have more. If we could do 1 a month, we would do 1 a month. You also, in fact, participate in and have limitations within your contract for things like IEP meetings and 504 meetings. Your contract does not permit us to necessarily hold you after school for those meetings, as other contracts do across the state recognize. So those meetings, student safety team meetings, educational support meetings, 504 meetings, and IEP meetings also have to all be done within your contracted hours. There are requirements which are outlined in both Act 113, the Safe School Bill, Act 120, Hazing and Harassment, Act 129, Act 156, 29, Child Abuse, and Act 1, Child Abuse, Sexual Abuse Prevention, that you need to have some of these meetings. On any given day, we did, and I asked the HR department to give me a snapshot of what absences occur. When I first started representing this district in 2008, individually represented this district in 2008, you all had substitutes who could come in and fill positions. Right now, you have 8 substitutes on your list. So on October 30th of 2023, there were 27 absences on the teacher level. There were 40 for all other school staff that were missing. You had 8 substitutes. On October 31st, you had 9 substitutes. There were 19 unfilled positions and 33 other school staff members who were not there. I can move to March 1st. We miraculously found a 10th substitute and filled 10 absences of the 34 teacher positions with substitutes. There were 30 other school staff level absent. So there were 34 teachers and 30 other school staff. The issue is having the time, and when you have those professional learning days, there is no need for substitutes, and it's having the time to have your involvement. As I said, there are 14 committees that we would hope that you all were participating in, but we know approximately 140 teachers and professional staff do participate in that have discussions about what will be presented. They do opportunities and feedback about what the professional learning will be. It's about building level leadership teams, fulfilling state requirements, working on the continuous improvement plan. And currently, the January and February meetings of each year are used for calendar development across those 14 committees. So, designated early release Wednesdays for SVSU students allow for teacher preparation, team meetings, and professional learning. It is unfortunate that we cannot get substitutes to fill. This is the method that we can, in fact, have these conversations. For those of you who do collaboration within your buildings, a lot of that also happens on your campus. One of the other things that we would point out in terms of what the contract is that Bennington Rutland Supervisory Union has half-days that follow a similar pattern over the winter. Burton has early release every Friday, all school year long. These are things that happen. This year, the curriculum teams and the SVSU Professional Learning Committee plan for 6.5-day math trainings and 1.5-day ELE trainings at the elementary school level. Did 11 universal for design differentiation trainings were scheduled as part of a 3-year series at both the middle school and at the high school. For next year already, there are 6.5 days of ELE trainings and 4 math trainings at the elementary level and a continuation of the final year of UDL trainings at the high school. All schools have at least 2 data review days and sprinklings of social, emotional, behavioral trainings, art, music, health, and sustainability. PE, counselors, clinicians, media specialists, behaviorists all receive 2 hours on 4 of the half days for curriculum work outlined in team-specific action plans. Paraprofessionals also have organized experiences for professional learning on all half days that can be completed during their contractual hours. That was something that we had dealt with in a contract where I believe the paraeducators had asked for opportunities for having professional learning. We would say to you and challenge you all that there should be an increased membership on the professional learning committees, which would also include a Southwest Tech teacher and some paraprofessionals, especially since January and February meetings on the year focus on calendar development that will be provided. That is our concern with your request regarding both the course opportunity and also with the half-day schedule and the working day schedule. Okay. Yes.
We want to first have a positive note. It's pretty exciting to find out that our school district passed its budget. There were 27 school districts in the state that did not. So we do know that the community does support this. Both of us. We are here because our community thinks it's important, and we want to make sure that what we decide tonight is impacting all of us. So first, I want to go back to our proposals that you guys, a lot of these we had talked about last time, so we kind of written up some of them that we had thought were tentatives. So I want to make sure that we agree on those first, and then I'll clarify that part about the material, and we'll talk about the ones that are still out there and see where we go from there. So first, when we were going through, we had thought we had agreed, and I think we did 8.14B and 8.14C with a minor changes. 8.14 was written and agreed to like as written, but 8.14C there was a cross out for employee will instead of shall, and then a safety hazard to the students or employees crossed out, and employees shall is crossed out, will is and specific. So that we wrote up as a tentative with those out. Okay, so those were the 2, right? We agreed to. That's great. And then we said we agreed to disregard F. So F is off the table, but G with only the last line was agreed to, so that teachers will not be required to perform custodial and maintenance duties. We did ask, we looked at it, we thought about that for a second. We wrote two different ones, one for the ESP contract that says non-custodial staff, and one for the teachers contract, just to clarify that, because we thought that would make sense. And then the last one, 8.14H, we also agreed to without for refusing to work in an unsafe environment, perform unsafe tasks. We had that as a tentative. Is that correct?
That I'll double check with them.
Okay. And then when wasn't on here was 8.14, the beginning section where the motion was restated. The board didn't agree to the beginning part, but we had thought that we did both agree to the part that said representative school administrator, in collaboration with faculty and support staff representatives from our committee, right? The committee and we had October 1st. The date would have to be changed to the contract date because the old contract says 2021. So we would put in 2024, and then the 2025 as the no later than for the reporting of. So if we agreed on that, we have 5 tentatives to have for that to start with.
I think actually, if I can, just Andrew, you're on that paragraph, you had of each school year and then of each school year, which solves it if it's a multiple year
Correct.
contract. So if you
We don't need the
if you
date.
want to stick with that, that's
So
perfect.
October 1st of each school year, right? My bad. And then May 1st of each school year, correct? And during the contract, right? Okay. So that was a positive start. And then when we left, we had proposed another salary grid with the idea that our safety language would be accepted, has changed and agreed to. We had a couple of things that we really feel strongly about, and we wanted to make sure before there was anything solid that we were clear about that. So we're looking at 8.14A. This was a really important part that we thought was we know that there are policies in place, but we didn't feel as though, and there is language in the contract that's been existing for some time, but we also presented to the board many cases during the time of those contracts that many things have happened, and we just wanted to have more clear language so that people really felt safe. And so we really didn't understand why it was, the language was objection to the board. For example, it would seem like it would be reasonable to have language that says that they shall take appropriate, timely, and consistent action in compliance with the board's policy and administrative procedure to address any instances of violence, threats, or any other serious concerns involving students, other members of the school community. I mean, it doesn't seem to us that's anything that any administrator would normally do, but we would. That's why we were wondering what is wrong with that part of the language. If we can come to something that maybe is similar to that. Remember, we were asked to find this, and we did. We found this this is from another contract in the state. So this is already in place, currently and updated. So it's not an old language that was written 20 years ago. It's language that was written recently and approved both by the administration and the unit. So we were just curious, and we would like to hear if there's something that you would like to counter, propose maybe a different way to say it that we might agree to. If we can come to an agreement on that, that's really important to us. We're really happy about the tentatives that we've gotten. And we really, coming in tonight, we were hoping that we wouldn't have to come back after tonight. We really all around this table want to settle this. And we feel as though it's been really positive, but there are some things that still make us wonder. And for example, quoting test scores, and we can talk about test scores, but honestly, I have to tell you, as a classroom teacher, if there was more control of behaviors in our schools, I think our scores would improve great. And I think that's why we wrote a lot of this language, because we really feel as though that's the need that our schools need. We need to be looking at what the problem is that's causing this. And we don't think it's that we're not teaching well, or we do agree that professional development is absolutely important and that every one of us is committed to continuing our craft and making us better at professional development. We just, and we do understand that there is a cost to that, but it is contractual that we are supposed to be able to get 3 credits per semester, right? And even though that isn't done, if it did happen, it would be a real burden for the school district. And I would say, my question would be, how is that in the budget if it's in the contract? So we're wondering, well, now, I think if we had more of these prepaid programs, it would be easier, especially for younger teachers, but also every one of us to continue that professional development. And we so totally understand that it is our responsibility to stay licensed, to be teachers, right? But we are both committed to bettering our education system for our kids. And so that comes with a commitment from both of us, that we would participate in these programs and that these programs would be offered. So we're asking that more of those programs be offered. And maybe it is through colleges outside of those 3. But right now, those are the 3 colleges that seem to participate in those prepaid programs, that they say, if you bring a cohort, we'll do this, and we want more of that. That's what we think would be successful if we can't agree to prepaying on all courses. That's what we're looking for. And yes, right. That was my other one on here. You mentioned that we don't have substitutes, that we have unlicensed and emergency licensed teachers. And
Professionally licensed, provisionally and emergency.
Provisionally licensed.
Everybody is licensed.
Emergency licenses and provisionally licensed. But they are not fully licensed teachers, and there's a reason for that, right? We go back to what we said at the beginning. We've lost good teachers within our own school district, right? I had a teacher in my building that went to Arlington because it was a better paying system for him. And so that's just one example. There are many teachers that leave to go to other states, right? We think that if we could be competitive, that's first off going to keep more teachers, so that less vacancies to fill. And yes, teaching is difficult across the United States right now to get teachers. There are many school districts in the same boat. But how do we fix that problem? I would say that the problem is it's coming from the fact that we aren't making it attractive. We aren't making it that this is the place you want to come to work. And I think we can, if we can move towards some of these things, and that would help a lot. So we think that kind of isn't something that we bring to, that's not the problem that we created. But we're all dealing with that problem. So yes, we know there's a huge shortage, but the solution isn't to put professional development with is to draw more people in, have more licensed teachers that are professionals, and to build professional development. So not to have, I don't mean to blame, but not to have an excuse. That's why we have to do this, because we don't have subs, is what we're saying. So we think we can improve the fact that why did we have subs 15 years ago and we don't have them now, right? So these are things that we have to look at and kind of look in the mirror and say, what are we doing? Go back. And I think that's we'll let you guys counter talk about what we just said, and we'll go from there.
Okay, so yeah, we do have that agreement on 8.14 about that last paragraph. I thought I had gone through that, make that clear. I'll give you an example of what's problematic with 8.14. The administration shall take appropriate, timely, and consistent action in compliance with board policy and administrative procedure to address any instances of violence, threats, or other serious safety concerns involving students or other members of the school community. Shall take appropriate, timely, and consistent action that will wind up in grievance arbitration with you. In compliance with board policy and administrative procedures will wind up in grievance arbitration with you. To address any instances of violence, threats, or other serious safety concerns, how we define violence, threats, or other serious safety concerns and differences on how we may view an individual action from a student involving students or other members of the school community is also problematic. I don't want to be flippant about this at all. We talked last time, I think I made it clear about there was also the problem about on or off school grounds, and if it's off school grounds, that we would say to you, by all means, please contact your police, and we would encourage you to contact that. There are children who are in every single school system in the state of Vermont where they have behavioral issues. What is severe or persistent and what is then permissible and what we can in fact do to address those needs with students is an issue of collaboration. It's an issue that also is limited sometimes by the law. We are concerned about students who do have what we would view as severe or persistent behavioral issues. We are concerned about staff safety. Our disagreement with having this provision within the contract does not mean that we are not concerned about that. What we would anticipate and what we would encourage is that the issues that come up overall need to be, if it's not an immediate concern, discussed within the confines of that meeting that we talked about, the monthly meeting. If it's something that you are not getting a resolution from your principal, building administrator, your associate director of special ed, if that's what it is, then you move up the conversation. That's what we would say to that. The only way that 8.14a, quite frankly, would be workable for us is if it had the addition of the sentence that the above, any disagreement regarding the above provision would not be grievable or subject to the grievance arbitration, which you're not going to agree to, I would suspect. One of the other things I want to also make clear, and I think maybe I was misunderstood, when I brought up about subs, that's not the only reason why we need to have professional development. I'm just saying that that's what the landscape looks like. And professional development is a good thing. You agreed that professional development is a good thing, and I'm happy to hear that. We aren't saying in terms of access to college courses, what's set right now in the contract permits you to go to other institutions and get your credits, whether or not that full amount is budgeted in every budget. It's an obligation of each board that they provide that to you. I would encourage, as well as the board would encourage, if you think that there are curriculums that you want to take or college courses you want to take, that you go and you do that. The prepayment problem for us raises administrative costs for us to manage that. And it raises a whole host of problems. We agree that this is a district that needs to be competitive. The board offered as its initial proposal for the teachers a 7 and 7, as well as for the paraeducators, a 7% in both the first year and the second year of a 2-year contract. We are trying to modify your salary schedule to provide that. Upon modifying your salary schedule, that doesn't mean then that we can then incorporate a whole host of things which become even additionally more expensive. Things have cost to them. My conversation with you, or my presentation with you about all of the professional development which occurs in the schools, because that professional development is provided to you for free, and it works for you in 2 ways. For those of you who are in a member district of the Southwest Vermont Supervisory Union, you can use that professional development to do column movement as well as to do your licensing requirements. And it's free, so no cost to you. For those of you who are at Southwest Tech, they provided a proposal which puts you on parity in terms of that. And that is something which we discussed at the beginning of about what you all could be doing. Want to just make sure I am saying that appropriately, correct? Because Southwest Technical School had something different, and you have some different requirements. So professional development, and when I do say about the student scores, those are the easiest things to point out. It is discouraging that we're talking about 79.7% of students are projected to not meet proficiency in math for a certain grade level, for a certain segment of grade level. So that is concerning to the board. The issue that we do have teachers who are on provisional license and on emergency licenses. Every school district in the state of Vermont has that. Because of your size, you have an inordinate amount of them. And one of the ways that we are trying to address that is by doing what the salary offer was from the board and moving that up. And every other year that boards have done negotiations, salary negotiations have been 3%, 3.5%. This board did not flinch and came out double that. And that is not something which is small for this board to do. We are happy that the budget passed. A little disappointed about maybe some other things, but we are very happy about the budget passing. And we think that that's great. And we are thrilled that the community does in fact want to support their schools. But in terms right now of what you have proposed, that's where we're at with that. I don't think that unless there's an incredible modification of 8.14A, and I can't come up with a modification that the board would be willing to agree to at this point. But it would be an extraordinary modification of that. And I don't know if you want to try that. I'm not sure that the board believes that it's possible, in fact, to do that. So I would leave that where we're at. But I just wanted to make sure that it's understood is that we agree that we should be competitive and have less vacancies. And our way of doing that was through what our salary offer was.
I just want to talk about that redesign of that you mentioned. If you can't find the language, what we need is a clear policy. Is all. We're looking for a clear policy on discipline, on infractions, and what the school district is doing to help the kids that want to learn. Right. We have classrooms that need to have an educational environment, and so we need to know what are the policies, and that is what we want clarified, and that's why we wrote that. Now, you mentioned that shall take appropriate, timely, and consistent action. If you take that out and left in compliance with board policy, that might work, but we just need to know what the board policy is. We want to know that there's a clear policy that's going to protect people, and that's what we're looking for. One more thing, and I think we probably should talk, but I wanted to go back because I forgot to mention and that I was going to address that proposal that you guys made to us, and we wanted to be clear on that. So it said in the sick leave bank area, which is the part that I think we're close on, right? That we had agreed last time, but we were talking about a time period, and we were thinking 30 days would be enough, right? If we put that in there, that was one of the things we wanted to make sure that would be okay with the board, that so they have a time limit to opt out at the beginning of each school year. I'm not sure why the old contract would have anything to do with that, with the part that sick bank, they couldn't go back. I just didn't understand that part, but you can clarify that, why an old contract that would be expired with that have anything to do with the new contract. I'm not really sure. So that when you said that that it might have a problem with going back, I heard that. I wasn't sure what that meant.
Do you want me to?
Yeah, try to.
Okay, so what I'm talking about is we're going to be entering in a contract that will be effective as of July 2025, right? July 1st. Before. I'm sorry, I'm already moving up here.
You're moving up here.
That's it. The gray hair. So when that contract goes into place and say if we modify what the sick bank is, what I'm saying is that you all provided this year, if you had to, provided a sick day, right? And that you all are opting into it. So that next year, when we have a voluntary sick bank, only those individuals who give that day are going to be covered next year. Meaning whatever contributions you made in 2022, 2023, 1999 to, to whatever year, doesn't matter. It's that moving forward, in order to access the sick bank as of July 1st, you have to not opt out and you have to comply with the provision of the sick bank of giving, under this provision of giving a day in. Okay?
Okay, but,
Does that make sense?
yes, it does. And, but what the language that we were asking for was said, shall contribute one sick day, from time to time. So, that isn't clarified that it would be every year, that everyone would be voluntary, but that they would get to opt out. So this year, yes, the sick bank being a sick day from each person, that was one of those time to times, right? So there's no clarification of when that is, so maybe we should have a time to time in there, and that might get us closer to the agreement, but in the meantime, right now, it says from time to time.
Right,
Okay,
and what we're saying is that in order to do it, you have to contribute a day, right? So if you want to be part of your sick bank as of July 1st, if you want to, if Christina wants to, if I can use you as an example, that's okay. If you want to do it, then you both have, and you give in a day, but Christina doesn't, then she's not going to be able to access the sick bank if she doesn't give in a day on July 1st, right? So that's what I'm saying. So it's going to go into your balance of what the sick days are. We're not asking you to modify what the balance of sick days are currently in your bank, right? We're not saying, hey, give us let's give us a pass and try and angle something that way. We're not trying to do that. So if you've got 500 sick days in your bank right now, June 30th, and nobody takes it from now until June 30th, you have 500 sick days.
Yep.
July 1st, 40 of you decide to do it, you'll have 540 sick days in your bank. And
Right.
only those 40 people can then do it.
Right, yeah, can apply. Yep,
Does that make sense?
it does.
Yes. So that's what we're saying. So it's not from a time to time. So in order to be eligibility for the sick bank is you have to give a sick day up.
each year.
Each year.
Right.
Yeah.
Because what you're doing is you're kicking it in for everybody to do it.
Okay, so, and then if we agreed to that, we wanted to make sure that like you said, we left this off, and I'm not really sure how, but we wanted to make sure that this part was still a part of that, which was that in exchange for the modification that we first proposed, that, it's Article 10.5, any corresponding sick bank administrative procedures outlined, the board agrees to grant 10 days, 2 weeks of paid leave to all employees who qualify under the 11.5, which is the maternity, and therefore they can't use the maternity for the sick
Right, you
bank.
can't, right, because right now, we had the little disagreement that wound up in arbitration, right? And the arbitrator said, yes, maternity leave you can't access the sick bank for maternity leave. So what we're saying to you is, and I want to be clear, gentlemen, we're also talking about paternity leave. I want to be very clear because we're not discriminating against individuals who would fit under paternity leave. You get the 10 days, but then you can't go to the sick bank.
Okay, so that's clarified, just so we,
Right.
will talk about that, and we'll talk about that. and-
I hope, am I, okay.
Yeah, we got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, sometimes I do trip over my. It happens. So, yeah, so there's that. I don't know if you have if you modified we understood what your proposal was, but we had talked about the difference there. Okay.
So that was the one that was not there, we just want to make sure, so that, then we can talk about that when we get to caucus. And I think we covered what we need.
If you want to hand me the
Yeah, we'll do
tentative,
that.
and we can take a.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Absolutely.
I'm the one who's kind of in charge of keeping this organized. You stated at the beginning that 8.14H, where it says there shall be no reprisal of experience in parents coercion or discrimination against employee filing or report of an unsafe or unhealthy working condition. You said the board did not agree.
I have to discuss it with them
Okay.
again, because
So that is
I
written
may
in
have
here?
had it marked differently than what you have it marked, so I will align with them.
But give me the rest.
Yeah.
And some of these, because it's going to ESP and teacher, one of them says teacher and ESP at the top, the other one, there's two separate.
Perfect, right, because you clarified on not doing the
Exactly,
custodial.
change word from
So
teacher
8.1
to non-custodial.
April 1 says both on the top,
Right.
and then these are separated, so one's teacher, one's ESP, that's what, and then that's what. So these are the copies, if you sign, the person will sign them after you. Right?
And we will talk about that.
And there's 3 copies in there, I just started.
Let's,
We're gonna read
Yeah,
them. We can leave, how we doing this?
We'll go back to where we are.
We're gonna go back to the small one, we're
gonna go next door.
gonna go next door.
And
I can just leave this.
And then this will stay up, so
This will stay
don't
up.
talk about anything in here when you come back that you don't
Remember,
want.
this room, this room, is that?
Um, so we stand with our original view, that people in our district are leaving, mostly due to unequal pay and working conditions. We know that we're in this together. It's not something that is on us. It's not something that's on you. We know that we're in this together, and that's why we need to come up with an agreement that will be a commitment from both sides of the table. We agree that 3.5% was certainly status quo for a long time, until 2020, when the pandemic hit, which increased the cost of living in one particular year almost 8%. And since then, we've been falling behind further and further. And over the years, we've been falling behind the market value of other districts that are equal in size and location around the state. So that's why we simply propose that we be compensated the same as our colleagues in our other districts. We mentioned that the language of 8.14 opens the door to grievances. We know that grievances occur when either party does not meet their contractual obligation. We know that we're both committed to that, so we don't believe that there would be any grievances on that. So we believe that if you can agree to the language in 8.14, we'd be willing to settle tonight. We have the one more tentative that we rewrote about the sick bank. We'll go through that. But if we can agree to settle on 8.14, we would agree. Sorry?
8.14.
Sorry, A, we already agreed on 8.14, as it stands. This is 8.14A with the sick bank. Okay, and so what we wanted to see was, we proposed last time, as we left, a salary grid that was 9 and 9, which was less than we originally proposed. If we can come to agreement on 8.14A, the way it is written, we would be able to settle on that tonight. And so, let's see,
So the same thing that you proposed last time, the 9 and the 9.
that last meeting that we were, not the first original proposal, but the last proposal, right? We did clean that grid up if you're interested in getting that one. It was just one column, everything else was right. So that's where we stand, and we're hoping that leaves the calendar, right? That leaves that calendar out there. You know, we're going back again, you know, as a classroom teacher, I can tell you that most of my absences do not occur related to the program for skiing. but most of my absences occur in the elementary school due to childcare, right? It's really difficult as a parent to have a half day of school. And whether it's the beginning of the day or the end of the day, it's a real burden on parents. We feel as though the professional development is absolutely necessary. We just think there's another way that we can do it without using half days. Full days throughout the calendar are much more easy for parents to do, right? If I have to take a whole day off, I can take a whole day off. But if I got all these half days, it becomes a burden. I know from my kids, a lot of them end up going to the grandmother's because there's no transportation, and that's where they stay for the day. And then they'll pick them up at the end of the day. And therefore they miss out on learning that day. And we want to make sure that the tech center's in alignment with all of the other tech centers, and we want to make sure that our kids aren't missing school because they don't have care. And so that's really the big issue that we feel as though why the half days are a burden on not just us, but also the community. So those are our points, and we hope that we can.
So if I understand this, you're dropping then the issue of course compensation, you're dropping the issue of absorbing classes, the language regarding if a member of the school directed committee outside of contracted hours, dropping that. You're dropping the once an employee has reached 180 days of unused sick leave, the payout of the sick leave, the quarantine issue, and what you're saying is that 9% and 9% for getting the calendar day proposal where you don't have any half days, and also getting all of the 8.14A as well as what we've agreed to so far in 8.14.
And one additional thing we forgot is 8.14D, we are also dropping. The hazardous or potentially dangerous.
What about 8.14E?
Yes, we already.
Yeah.
Already. This is the new drop. Tremendous concessions.
We don't want to think about it as dropping. We'll call it, we're bargaining.
Bargaining.
Well, no, I mean, you're dropping those as proposals that you're seeking. I mean, that's what you're doing. Okay. All right. You had asked, and I'm going to respond to, and we're all still good with the response, Chris, Stephanie, you all still good with the response? You had asked at one point in time what policies we were talking about in terms of that deal with things around long discipline, and that 50-50 for Southwest Vermont is discipline and expulsion, I believe, of pupils. 50-55 talks about verbal physical assault by pupils. 4001 subsection 4.3 references students. I don't remember the title of that, but it talks about their behavior. 4003 is a bullying prevention one. For the tech center, 50-50C is also a suspension and expulsion policy. 50-65C is a verbal and physical assault policy. So there are policies that are out there that exist that do address that. We've talked at times about, there are also laws, regulations. So there's statutes, regulations, case law, and the like, and rules that also impact on those issues depending on the status of the student and whether or not they're solely a general education student or if they're a general education student who receives specialized instruction. The board had a conversation regarding where we're at. We need to see, obviously, the sick bank modification. We had also given you the modification on the 8.14H. And I haven't heard back about how you feel about that. I don't know if that means if you're dropping that, or if there was a difference in language that we had talked about.
We actually had that language, that the word that was missing was supposed to be in there. We didn't have it in there. We rewrote it. So it is the way that it was written. So
So
that
it doesn't have the for refusing to work in an unsafe
Right,
environment or
correct.
perform unsafe tasks.
Yep, and it
And it
has,
has alleged added.
Yes.
yes.
It is. So 8.14H, there shall be no reprisals, restraints, interference, coercion, or discrimination against an employee filing a report of an alleged unsafe or unhealthy working condition. So we added that.
Right, so we would consider that to be a tentative agreement as well, yeah?
Okay.
Just wanted to note that we combine that into one for ESPs and teachers, ESPs and teachers, so
So it just says it on the top.
Oh.
Okay,
And
right.
then the changes for, on the sick bank, there were some things that we wanted to make sure. One was we added in the 30 days of school. It says, I'll read the whole thing. Sick bank leave, each teacher shall voluntarily contribute one sick leave day to the sick leave bank. By default, teachers are automatically enrolled in the sick leave bank. Employees can opt out of contributing and receiving the benefits of the sick leave bank at the beginning of any school year within the first 30 days of the school or within 30 days of hire if they are hired during the school year. The bank shall be used to protect teachers who have exhausted their annual and accumulated sick leave and cannot return to work due to continuing illness, injury, or disability. The teacher who has contributed to the sick leave bank for that year and who is eligible for sick leave bank coverage shall make a request for additional sick leave days, and a committee composed of representatives of the association shall review the request and may award additional days. No teacher shall receive more than 100 additional days or 5 consecutive years during a period of illness, injury, or disability. The committee shall establish procedures, forms, and applicable rules for the sick leave bank. Sick leave bank procedures and forms will be available from the administration. Sick leave bank committee does not have the discretion to approve requests that do not meet the criteria outlined above, i.e. illness, injury, and disability. And the board will grant 10 days, 2 weeks of unpaid maternity leave to all employees who qualify for leave under 11.5. Sorry. Did I
It's
read that
not
one?
unpaid.
Sorry.
The maternity leave.
Paid maternity. Imagine what 2 letters can do.
They can irritate your whole life. They can set everybody up. So the one thing that isn't in there, and maybe we need to have that discussion, is we talked about the language about that the words would remain part of the collective bargaining, and not that the committee itself would be coming up with that. So that's what we had put in our proposal, was the issue of that that it would still be, procedures would still be subject to the collective bargaining. So that's
Is that
what
already in the contract?
No. The addition that,
we have put in.
and we proposed striking that. And keeping the language as is instead of adding that.
So then we'll discuss that, but I think that may be problematic regarding that proposal. So we will talk about that, but
Could
what
you
I
explain your rationale for that? Could you ask us to do that?
Yes. Sure. The rationale for it is that in terms of granting that leave and the procedures for doing it, we've already gone through one grievance issue of where there was a belief that even though the language limited the use of sick leave to injury, illness, or disability, which maternity or paternity leave does not rise to the level of injury, illness, or disability, that there was already a grievance saying that we had improperly denied applications for maternity leave. So we've already had it with the existing language, which we thought clearly outlined when it could be used, where we've had to go through the very costly and timely expense of having to deal with a grievance procedure about it. So in terms of if there's a concern about opening up what the sick bank would be utilized for past injury, illness, or disability.
But in the contract, in this language, it says the sick bank committee does not have the discretion to approve requests that do not meet that criteria. So it
Mean
should,
that you didn't have that discretion to do so previously, but we still wound up in a situation where we were in front of an arbitrator. So that's our concern, and being very transparent about it, is that there's one thing when there's language that we think is very clear, as I think I pointed out in a couple provisions, and then it's how it is used from your side of the coin, right? That to us, injury, illness, and disability don't ever encompass things like maternity leave, right? We did wind up there because your association did impact that. So that's what our concern is about that. Quite honestly, the forms that you have don't really care. I don't think how the form itself looks. It's the procedures which are problematic.
Our UNISERV director expressed concern over changing that language. And she's not here to speak to the matter, so I'm trying to remember what her concern would be. And that it was difficult sometimes to try to remember her language. Sometimes come up with I can't even. All right, I understand your.
No, I know, and I understand, and I can envision in my own brain what would be problematic from your side on that. Because it could be, and it's a concern from us, right? So what happens if we can't come to an agreement under collective bargaining about what the procedures would be? Procedures right now across your districts are done administratively, right? So they're in fact, very infrequently do you see such as your Title IX policy, which actually then has an accompanying procedure with it, right? Because that is something the state mandated. I'm giving as an example. You have policies and then you have procedures that exist and they're done administratively. And how they're done administratively, one is convenient from a board's perspective and from an administration's perspective, because administratively, they don't have to go back to the board, right? But this is an issue of when we put it in and say that it's going to be under collective bargaining, then it would be something the board is involved in having that conversation about it. I don't know if it's possible, and I'm not trying to put pressure on you. I don't know if it's possible if you're UNICEF director, you guys can get by phone.
We can reach her, yeah.
I think we'd be willing to give some time to do that. And I understand that, but I'm being very blunt with you about what our concern is.
So could you clarify the language that would make this agreeable to you, and then we can talk over that? Because I wanted to write down what you said, that
the procedures would be subject to collective bargaining. I don't think the forms, as I sit here, I don't think that we care what the form looks like. And quite honestly, I think there are parts of the procedure we're not going to care, right? If you guys decide that it's one person gets to decide it, right, because it's your committee, not going to care about that. That has no interest to us. Where we're concerned about is what are the acceptable, at least initially, what I can come up with that we're concerned about is what are the acceptable qualifying events for use of sick bank leave.
And would you be, for your on an administrative level, district level, be responsible for then? Oh, okay, I know what Megan's concern is now. Would you be then responsible for kind of acting as a gatekeeper then as to what comes to us and what doesn't, if that is added in there? So I think that the concern is that the committee wants to be able to make a determination about these things, subject, of course, to the things in 11.5 or whatever it is. And I think that the goal is to make it so that there's no gatekeeper that's keeping, things that could be qualified out on a district level. And I think that's her main concern, is that does not happen. There is no gatekeeper between membership and the committee that makes the determination. And so as long as we can guarantee that, I don't see why there would be a problem.
So pardon me for how I'm going to respond initially for a little bit to this. I have to say this, there never has been, other than on the maternity or fulfilling whether or not it's been an employee who maybe has had more than 100 days or asked more in that time period, there has never been a gatekeeping function in the last, I'm willing to go with, Nick, how long did we work to?
8 years.
In the last 8 years. I'm not necessarily willing to go prior to that. Okay, and to be honest with you. So that's a little hard for me to take, right? Because the only thing, and that's for me to, I'm responding, not the board. So if you're upset, please be upset. Back in the day, there absolutely was, before it was a very, we have a much more professionalized HR department now. But back in the day, before it was more professional or as professional as it is, yeah, there probably was some gatekeeping functions. But in the last 8 years, I'm going to tell you, I absolutely would believe that there have. So that's a little hard. I think it would be difficult for us to come up with language, perhaps, maybe not. There has to be some sort of mechanism, if, in our estimation, your committee decides to go wild, wild west. And so maybe we need, maybe we need to figure out how we can manage it that way.
Perhaps an agreement that would work for both sides in that we would receive the, within a certain amount of time, within a certain amount of days. I think one of the concerns is that it could sometimes get held up unnecessarily, and then the committee just wouldn't receive the request on time. And so perhaps if we have language that can show the amount of days for both sides, that, upon receiving, the district will, send it over to the committee within a certain amount of time. I think that could take care of a lot of those problems.
And
And
then it just becomes
and
a
then it's-
subject matter, right?
Yeah,
Of what they're asking you.
exactly. And so if we could clarify that, I think we could be, once again, close on.
Yeah, I think if we can get something that I'm trying, I'm struggling here and having the concern is the wild, wild west.
And what do you think would be appropriate to satisfy that? Because
And could it fall on, like, could that protection fall under that? Like the procedure, that's developing timeline.
Instead of putting direct language in, like, there would be a sick leave bank procedure, and then you would follow that procedure, and that's where we could have that language in there and the timeline of how many days.
Right, and so, but you right now are, in your proposal, are saying that you all get to create what that whole procedure is without any input from us, right?
right, but that's what I'm saying. We could take yours into account and then perhaps, because of we just want to make sure that there's nothing that could prohibit the or prohibit the committee from getting the request. And that would stand in the way. And we just want to make sure that that process is smooth. And we don't want there to be any type of barrier to that.
And this says the sick leave bank procedures and forms will be available from the administration. So
Right, but what you're saying, you have language in there that talks about that your committee is gonna come up with the things and the procedures, I thought. I mean, I'll look at the hard copy,
yeah, you can look at it.
but so if it does say that your committee, which right now I think we have,
It
it.
says committee shall establish
Much to your chagrin
procedures
and
for
probably
that.
ours, that we have it split, right, where it's half you guys, half us. And so, yeah, let me take a look at it and we can do that. One of the things I want to factor in is that we're still talking about this and we think that we probably can get to the end on that one when I give you our response back, okay? So I don't know if, we've done, okay, I just want to make sure. I'm going to start with the support staff proposal first, if that works for you all. So the board is proposing right now, and I want to be very clear that the salary is contingent on acceptance of the two other main things that I'm going to put out to you all, okay? The salary is 9% and 9% with STEP. And that's contingent on that we would like to create a committee of building reps, including Southwest Tech teachers. So that's the building reps, but also having Southwest Tech have some have a couple of administrators and also have ESP representation that will study and come up with a proposal on the half days. We can't agree to the half days at this juncture. So that's our response on the half day part, and that all tentatives, and that's why I'm saying, hopefully we can work out the one on the sick bank as well, because our expectation is to have the sick bank resolved as part of this proposal. And all tentatives that we have as of tonight, and then it would be the 9% and 9% with staff. Are there any questions?
That was support staff?
That's for support staff. For teachers, it's the same. You're going to be surprised. It's a creation of the committee with having you all, and that's the response, and also representatives from Southwest Tech and some administration representatives with coming up with a proposal on the half days and how to manage those out. I will tell you, we've had discussions. They're not, just to give you, do we shift to doing all day, full days? Do we shift to how do we do it, right? Do we do it at the beginning of the year? How do we manage this issue, right? So we've had all of that. We've had different discussions, and we would like, and we think that having input from the individuals who would be getting the professional development is not a negative, right? So and how to resolve it. Again, all tentatives agreed to as of tonight that we've talked about. For the salary, the board is saying 8% and 8% plus step on each year. For the first year at least, and I can't do I didn't have the ability to do the math for the second year. For the first year, that works out to 9.88%. And I apologize to support staff. I didn't break out with step what it was for you all overall, but so for teachers, it's 8% plus step, 8% plus step in a 2-year contract. And so for the first year, it is 9.88% for teachers. So I will look at the sick bank language.
We just want to clarify, you're sure, it was 8% for teachers and 9% for support staff?
Right, both with step, yes.
With staff, right? Okay, because
And-
we had originally said that we were settled for 8 and 9 for teachers, and then we flipped it. Is that what you're saying? That we just want to clarify that was what the intention was.
We were at 7 and 7.
I understand, but at last discussion we had that we would agree for Paris at 8 with the safety language, right? So now you're saying that they get.
It's 9 and safety.
You all said with the safety language that you would agree to at 8%. Correct.
Right.
We're
And so
saying-
You're giving them 9, you're saying we'll give you 9,
And step
right? And then,
with the tentatives that we have, which doesn't
Tentatives.
include the 8.14A.
It doesn't include the safety language that we've talked about.
It includes the
all
ones
of the-
that we signed up.
all the
that
ones
we're
we
signing
have, but
off
not
on.
8.14A. We have-
So all the ones that we all just agreed to, the one it doesn't include is the 8.14A that you all have been talking about.
Also, in our original proposal, we asked for a 25-year step in our ESP contract, and that has been forgotten
Right, this is, right now, this is what our proposal,
without the 25-year step.
yes.
Yeah, and.
And so then, so sorry, I mean, I'll talk to anybody.
Yeah, I'm trying to direct the
Right.
conversation, so.
Yeah, are there any other questions about first support staff, just so I can clarify that?
And I just wanted to clarify that, so that was 9%, your first 2 years plus step, with the committee, that would be organized with reps, building reps, ESPs, and Southwest Tech working on a committee, same committee for the teachers, and 8% plus step, and all the tentatives that are on the table.
Yeah, and hopefully with and that includes with the
Includes the
resolution of the sick, that we get some language that helps us both out. No 8.14, right?
Correct.
Correct.
We're gonna need another caucus, yeah.
Right.
And,
If you, well, I don't know if we can, but if you want, I can see if we can run what the actual is for support staff for the first year. I'm not sure how easily we can
do
do
you want to read that?
it. And then we'll take a look at this as well, so we'll talk this on as well.